So tonight's proposal is a full 5-day in-person learning for grades K through 12. Next slide, please. So all students in Bloomfield Hills schools can attend school for a full school day, 5 days per week, beginning April 5th, 2021. Next slide. So for Bloomfield Hills High School, Blackhawk Hour will go back to the morning at the beginning of the day from 7:30 until 9 a.m. So school would start at 9:35. The school day would end at 2:30. Our middle schools would run from 8:15 a.m. until 3:05 p.m. Elementary school would be from 9:05 a.m. to 3:55 p.m. Wing Lake would be from 8:45 a.m. to 2:35 p.m. The International Academy would be 7:45 a.m. to 2:35 p.m. And Bowers Academy would be from 9:35 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. Next slide, please. So a little bit more about Blackhawk Hour. It was created to meet student learning needs during pandemic learning, which is what we're in the middle of, a global pandemic. So this innovative response was designed to address the difficulty providing student support when instruction is simultaneously in person and virtual. While well received, it is important to understand that Blackhawk Hour is only permissible during pandemic learning, as permitted by the Michigan Department of Education Pandemic Learning Guidelines. As we return next year, Blackhawk Hour will not be available. However, the district is reviewing ways to implement the best of Blackhawk Hour within the school year. Next slide, please. And this is further update, like we said we would bring back based on our board meeting 2 weeks ago. So looking at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services guidance around spacing and lunch. So spacing for instructional setting guidance, maintain 6 feet of distance. If a school district nonetheless proceeds with an all-in approach, at a minimum, it should maintain a minimum seated distance of 3 feet in classrooms. Our response, students will have 3 feet of physical distance. Lunch guidance, when students eat lunch, provide 6 feet of distance to the extent feasible. Our response, students will have 6 feet of physical distance at lunch. Next slide, please. So looking at Wing Lake, return to full-time instruction. Wing Lake staff began planning for a return to full-time face-to-face instruction in early February. This planning includes migrating from the current one schedule platform to a virtual or in-person option. Please keep in mind that over 99% of Wing Lake students do not wear a mask. Protocols for safely meeting students' personal care needs, especially shared bathrooms and hallways, are going to be updated, and adequate staff is in place. Daily temperature checks and limitations to visitors will continue, with hydrotherapy restarting in March. We are committed to keeping students cohorted once off the bus to the greatest extent possible, all while maintaining our exceptional level of instruction and care. Moving back to full-time instruction entails a selection window for parents and guardians to log into MyStar and select either in-person or distance learning for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. This will allow staff to determine how many students are remaining virtual and plan for any necessary changes to classroom assignments. Based on the results, each grade band will determine whether or not to have one virtual teacher versus the teachers in the grade level sharing virtual responsibilities. Updating our related services schedule to meet the needs of both in-person and virtual students while staying compliant with IEPs and continuously learning plans. In-person students will return for a full day, Monday through Friday from 8:45 a.m. to 2:35 p.m. There will be one asynchronous learning day, March 26th, leading up to the start date for furniture storage, room setup, and additional professional development to outline new procedures and protocols related to mitigating COVID-19. Next slide, please. So Wing Lake lunch and recess plans, meal protocols, breakfast and lunch will be delivered to the classrooms by food services and program aides. Staff will continue to follow all safety procedures for feeding students. Staff will utilize PPE such as gloves, masks, face shields, gowns, scrub jackets during feeding times. Students will be physically distanced from one another. Playground, A school-wide playground schedule has been developed for contact tracing purposes. 1 to 2 classrooms at a time. Preferably, classes that share bathrooms will play at the same time versus mixing with another group. Entry and exit to the playground. Classroom doors leading to the playground, rooms 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. And then the main lobby doors, rooms 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 15. Next slide, please. Conant lunch and recess plans. Excuse me. Each classroom will be split into 2 groups of students. Each group will have an assigned room for lunch. Every student will have 6 feet distance from another student. There will be assigned tables and desks that will be wiped down before and after eating. Other COVID safety protocols will continue. Hand washing, teachers bringing students down to and from eating areas, utilizing staff to clean tables between lunches. Masks will be removed when eating only. Students will be engaged in a developmentally appropriate video during this time. 2 lunch times utilizing para-educator and latchkey staff for supervision. Rooms that are going to be used are in close proximity. The paras can supervise 2 to 3 rooms. There'll be 24 to 30 students total, divided between the 2 to 3 rooms. Teachers will have their duty-free lunch when the students eat. Recess will be scheduled independently by classroom teachers at their discretion, utilizing our large campus of playground spaces and athletic fields spread out for social distancing. Custodians and para will help deliver lunches ordered that morning. Next slide, please. Eastover, every student will have 6 feet of distance from another student facing the same direction. Students will be utilized in a variety of spaces during lunchtime, classrooms, common areas. Classrooms will be split into 2 groups of students. Each group will have an assigned room for lunch. Lunch will be delivered to the classrooms. Assigned tables and desks will be wiped down before and after eating. Paraeducators and latchkey staff will supervise lunch periods. Teachers will have their duty-free lunch when the students eat. Other COVID safety protocols will continue. Hand washing, masks will be removed only when eating. Utilization of staff to clean tables between lunches. Recess will be scheduled and supervised by the classroom teacher, utilizing our 2 playground spaces and athletic fields to spread out for social distancing. Next slide, please. Lone Pine lunch and recess plans. School lunch will be delivered to classrooms. Most classes will eat in their classroom, using adjacent hallway or media center space as a spillover to ensure the 6 feet of social distancing. These classrooms will use a combination of student desks/tables and lightweight portable tray tables that can be collapsed, stacked, and stored after each lunch. Students from room 6 will eat in the media center, spaced 6 feet apart using computer lab and media center tables. Students from room 10 will eat in a larger vacant classroom, room 16, using tray tables. Students from room 19 will eat in the gym using tray tables. Tables and desks will be assigned to each student and wiped down before and after eating. 2 lunches will be run, utilizing paraeducators and latchkey staff for supervision. Teachers will have their duty-free lunch when the students eat. COVID safety protocols will continue. Hand washing, masks will be removed when eating only. Students will be engaged in a developmentally appropriate video during lunch to focus attention forward. Recess will be scheduled independently by classroom teachers at their discretion, utilizing our large campus of playground spaces and athletic fields to spread out for social distancing. Next slide, please. This is a picture of Lone Pine as they're getting ready to set up. So you can see the top left are the lunch trays that are going to be 6 feet apart. To the right are desks that are 3 feet apart. The bottom left is going to be another area for lunch, using the space available, and same for the picture on the bottom right. Again, another lunch space using these portable lunch trays and using all spaces available to get to 6 feet of social distancing during lunch. Next slide, please. Way lunch and recess plans. Every class will be split into 2 groups. 3 separate lunchtimes spaced 10 minutes apart, 25 minutes in length. Other COVID safety protocols will continue. hand washing, teachers bringing students down to and from the eating areas, utilization of staff to clean tables between lunches, tables disinfected before and in between each lunch period, common areas set up for lunch for the remainder of the year, including gym, media center, and former computer lab. Teachers, paras, and administration supervise lunch. Teachers will have their duty-free lunch during scheduled recess. Masks will be removed when eating only. Every student will have 6 feet of distance from another student facing the same direction. Lunch is to be delivered to each location. 10-minute cleaning period between each lunch, and 35-minute recess, independent reading time, supervised by paras and ancillary staff. Next slide, please. Middle school lunch and recess plans. A variety of spaces will be used for lunch, including larger areas of the school, cafeteria, gym, field house to make sure students are spaced out. A minimum of 6 feet of social distancing between students during lunch. Mask removal will only occur while eating and drinking. Single seating, so 1 student per table. No students will be grouped together. All seats and tables will face the same direction. Assigned seats, still determining the process of assignment, whether it's going to be alphabetical or by teacher. Adequate adult supervision based on student ratios. Grab and go lunch line, so there's no long lines. Outdoor seating, weather permitting. Other COVID safety protocols will continue. Hand washing, teachers bringing students down to and from eating areas. Utilization of staff to clean tables between lunches. Recess may not follow lunch immediately. Recess will be provided at staggered times. Recess can also be scheduled independently by classroom teachers at their discretion, utilizing our large campus of playground spaces and athletic fields to spread out for social distancing. We will continue to adjust our plan as we know final student enrollment counts. Next slide, please. Here's an example of East Hills and their setup. 3 feet of social distancing between desks or tables, just so everyone can kind of get an idea of visually what it looks like at East Hills. Next slide, please. K-5 specials. Students will engage in all co-curricular classes within the school day: art, media, music, physical education, and Spanish. And then continue monitoring and support, use of outdoor spaces for physical education as weather permits, optimizing large group spaces for both learning and distance needs, and then feedback loops with staff regarding routines and spaces. Next slide, please. 6 through 8 electives. Students will engage in all elective classes within the school day. Work in progress. Rescheduling students across core electives to adjust for remote and in-person. PPE needed in specialty areas such as band, orchestra, and choir. Furniture adjustments and procurement. And then continue monitoring and support, use of outdoor spaces as weather permits, optimizing large group spaces for both learning and distance needs, and ongoing feedback loops with staff regarding routines and spaces. Next slide, please. Latchkey and Kids Zone. Blackhawk Extended Care will sunset on March 25th, 2021. Hours of operation will be 7 a.m. until the start of school, and then end of the school day until 5:30 p.m. It continues to meet community need with wide range of availability. Early closure allows for additional cleaning responsibilities. Limited enrollment due to distancing protocols. Continued monitoring and support, staffing levels, classroom arrangements that create opportunities for distancing, and training for staff health and safety and instructional shifts. Next slide, please. So timeline of Milestone and tasks leading up to the full return on April 5th. March 1st through 5th, all K-8 students that are interested in changing from in-person to Bloomfield virtual may indicate the selection on MyStar. Bloomfield Hills High School and Wing Lake will ask their families to indicate attendance in person or virtual to assist in preparing appropriate spaces for their students. March 1st through 5th, survey families who are eligible for transportation to register for transportation. March 5th to March 26th, adjust student schedules as needed, stock additional PPE, and schedule furniture to be moved according to the new design. The Bloomfield Hills High School schedule remains the same. New schedules, including unified arts and electives, will be communicated to teachers by building principals once enrollment is finalized. Wing Lake class assignments will be adjusted once enrollment is finalized to account for virtual and in-person students. March 8th to 26th, complete new bus schedule for a full return. Now until March 26th, and we're making great progress. Make sure all staff that want to be vaccinated are vaccinated. And then April 3rd, transportation times and stops communicated to families who registered for transportation. If a family did not register for transportation by March 5th, students can be added to existing stops on April 15th on a case-by-case basis. Going back up to March 5th to March 26th, one thing that should be added and is not on there right now is potentially adding additional staff, depending on how many might choose to go in person or how many might choose to go virtual. We may need to add additional staff there, and then continue with our overall recruitment of staff. Next slide. So again, the options, if returning to full class cohort size is not in alignment with the needs of the family, students can select to transfer to Bloomfield Virtual, grades K through 5, or distance learning grades 6 through 8 in Wing Lake. For the high school, we're just trying to see and get a sense for what the needs are going to be as far as how many may be returning. We know that for many high school students, they've made the decision to stay virtual for the rest of the year, and there's no question or no concerns about that. But if we know a large number of students are going to be coming in, particularly in a class, we may need to switch some classes. If you are currently in person and wish to go virtual, we for sure can accommodate you. If you're currently virtual and you'd like to come back full in person, we'll do our absolute best to accommodate you. It might mean you should be at Conant, but there's one spot at Way, whatever we can do, prioritizing those students with the IEP, but we've got to stay with those 3 feet parameters. But students, even though we're having the survey, will still have the option whether they're going to Zoom in each day or remain at home. But again, like I said, we know some students have already made the decision they will remain virtual for the rest of the year. Details will be shared with families upon board approval of the full 5-day in-person schedule. Next slide, please. All right, I'll turn it back over to you, President Colin.
Thanks, Pat.